Hey folks, Tony Mo here, and today we're going to travel off the beaten path of video games to talk about something entirely different, specifically scale modeling, and my first foray into a proper scale model in the form of this Russian T-55 medium tank. This is a 1/48 scale kit by Tamiya that was actually just recently refreshed. Didn't even realize this until someone told me after I bought it and it was already on its way, but it was a lot of fun. Relatively easy to build. We're not done with it yet. In fact, we're going to be painting it tomorrow on Twitch on the live stream. But there's a lot to be said about this scale model kit and how I got here. So I kind of wanted to share that story with you folks. So let's do that. To make things clear, I am going to be uploading videos on the channel once again. In fact, you're going to get a video every single week from me on Friday. These videos are going to be broken up into different playlists on the channel, simply called Tony Talks, whatever the subject matter is. Today we're talking scale modeling. Next week we might be talking video games. I got a Titanfall 2 video that I finished up for you folks who are looking for some of that goodness because, oh boy, people are still playing that game all these years later. It's crazy. Somehow just doesn't want to die. We'll also be doing some miniature painting stuff and some gunpla stuff. Essentially, the channel is going to be very hobby-focused going forward. Not just video games, but all of the other wonderful things I've been engaging in to keep myself mechanically engaged, mentally engaged, and sane. To be honest, especially miniature painting, getting into scale modeling, creating a little workspace for myself here. I've got a little workbench I put together in my office now. These things have been helping me cope with anxiety and depression in big ways, especially during times when those things are at an all-time high for me. So let's talk a little bit about my past history with scale models. When I say my first scale model, I think of this as my first proper scale model kit. Now, I've built Gunpla in the past. In fact, we did a couple Gunpla builds over on the Twitch channel already. I started building Gunpla when I was like 15 with a friend who introduced me to it, and I started miniature painting a few years before that. Unfortunately, neither of those things would really stay with me through the rest of my life. In fact, it wouldn't be until last year that I would pick up miniature painting again over 15 years later, and also start doing Gundam model kits again. Some things just kind of fade out of your life for a lot of different reasons, and sometimes they make your way back into life at all of the right times. And so that's kind of how that went down. But when we talk about scale modeling, I didn't really have the good fortune of having anyone introduce me to scale models as a kid. Like I said, Gunpla, I had a friend. Miniature painting, I walked into a Games Workshop store. We used to have a local store here with my brother and our good friend, and they were amazing. We were just like, what is this? And they were like, it's all of this, and let us show you how to paint. And you can come here for, the next 3 weeks and not buy anything, and we'll keep showing you stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure I got taught how to play 40K, how to play Lord of the Rings Tabletop, which it just released. They showed us how to dry brush and how to paint miniatures before we even spent any money. It was insane. It was the most wonderful experience I had as a youth getting into a hobby. Model kits like this, my local hobby shop, were not like that. These days, my local hobby store kicks ass, and been trying to support them as much as possible through the pandemic. But when I was a kid, my memories are just old gatekeepy folks. People who just stand behind the counter, and if you look like you don't have any money, and if you look like you're too young, they're not interested in showing you anything. So I didn't have a good experience as a kid. But those model kits always caught my eye, and even just in the last few years going to Michael's, for any reason that I go in there, I'd always find myself, I got to walk down the model kit aisle. I got to look at the tester's paint. I just got to walk by it, right? See that wall of model cars. For some reason, model cars have just not died out, and Michael's and all these places always carry model cars and tester's paint. The allure had never left me, really. And so when I started getting into miniature painting again this past year, end of last year, actually, and doing Gunpla, scale modeling definitely crossed my mind, and I have a couple individuals, Omnius, who you are, good friend Omnius, who hangs out in the Discord, hangs out Twitch streams a lot. He just recently finished his Panther build. He was very encouraging. He's big into scale model. He's like, Tony, you gotta do scale model while I was doing Gundam. He ended up buying a Gundam kit before I bought a scale model kit, so it was almost like, oh, now I gotta get a scale model kit. And so I had plans to go with the Sherman. But when I was buying some Vallejo paints, this T-55 was on sale for like $18, and so I just snagged it, and I decided to make this my very first kit. And that's kind of how we got here. It all came around, and here I am over 15 years later, and I'm finally working on my very first scale model kit. And it's a bit of catharsis, because like this idea of like scale model kit has been in my life for such a long time, and now it's like, yeah, you're old enough you could just buy one. But I think more than that, like I said, it was this perfect storm of like, I want these sorts of hobbies in my life again, and I don't want them to go away. I'm not just looking for like a quick weekend fad of like, I spent some money into that thing, that was fun. No, I want something where I can have this persistence, this self growth, if you will, as well, to get better at painting, to get better at building scale models. And so it all just kind of came together at the right time. And I think I could talk a lot more about that, but I won't, because we should talk a little bit more about this kit, where I'm going with it, and what it's been like to put together my first kit. Obviously not a difficult thing, really. There's definitely some finicky bits, I think, especially the tracks, which fortunately this kit has sections of the track that were already put together, and then you just kind of build the smaller bends. So it wasn't actually that hard once I kind of figured it out. I still have it all unglued here, so wheels and tracks will come off when we're painting this thing finally, as well as they've come off through the priming process. So it was just a lot of finicky bits. But the more I did it, the more it was like, okay, this is like, you gotta be delicate here. Cement glue is fucking amazing. Once you understand how it works and you use like a thin glue for the places where you should have a thin glue, the magic is still there for me, I think, like, again, it's weird to say that this was such like a mysterious thing for so long to me, but there's just something about scale models. Like you're making this little version of this larger thing, right? And I think Adam Savage, just recently talked about that. Like, what is so satisfying about scaled down versions of larger things, whether it be scale models or even, like scale models of fridges and stuff like that. A lot of the things that go into dioramas. There's just something about it. Like, I don't know what it is. You're holding this version of this much larger thing in the palm of your hand, and you get to make it look like any version of that thing that you want it to look like. And there's something about that just clicks, I think, for a lot of people, which is why scale modeling has been around for as long as it has, and it's only grown, right? Like, now you can find 100 YouTube channels covering scale modeling. And another big part of this kit and the process that I've went through thus far, and the process I'm going to go through when I paint it and weather it, is thanks to individuals I've watched on YouTube. Martin Kovac, Night Shift, has been a huge one. In fact, we're going to use one of his painting processes, sort of a reverse painting process where we do light tone, mid-tone, and then the darker tone in order to do some chipping fluid stuff as well as some hand chips on this thing. And so that's really where this project has taken me. It went from like, on a whim, okay, let's just buy the kit now, not wait another week. I was actually going to build a gunpla kit before this, and I just went with it to like, build it. Let's just paint it and build it and we'll call it a day too. No, let's make this thing one big lesson. Let's do all of the things that I've ever wanted to do with a scale model and that I've recently learned about, and let's put them to practice on this thing. And so, again, I went from like just painting it to, okay, now we're going to battle damage it. I got chipping fluid. We're going to do chipping fluid chipping. We're also going to do hand chipping. Picked up some MIG enamel washes. We're going to be doing washing, pin washing. We're going to be doing lots and lots of mud. And I'm going to build a base for it when it's all said and done. A base that hopefully I can mount this thing on the wall, like sort of at an angle with. It's been a fun project that went from, let's just do all this stuff on the fly, which I think it's important, honestly, when it comes to stuff like this and painting, to sometimes just go with the flow, if you will. Like, be that 14-year-old self who doesn't have access to the internet or a bunch of lessons on how to do things right, and just go with certain things. And when I did the battle damage, that was kind of it. Like, I had gotten an understanding for how the techniques for battle damage work, but in terms of doing the battle damage, I just wrote my own story and was like, all right, cut this fender off, couple rounds here, round through there, blows out the headlight. It's like, just do it, man. Just commit to it, because those, accidents can become happy little accidents. They can quickly become intentional pieces of design that work out better than you would have ever expected. So that's been important. But also, again, it's gone from a project where I was like, let's just do it, to let's study things every step of the way. And so I've frequently put this thing down. We did a coat of primer, did battle damage, did more primer, cleaned it up a little bit, put it down again for the last week now while we waited for the chipping fluid and some stuff to come in. Some of the other paint colors that I got a black gray from Lejo that I'm going to be using and stuff for weathering. That came in, and it was like, okay, let's start to plan things out a little bit more. And that's where I ended up going back and rewatching a lot of Martin's videos to look at the painting process I wanted to take on. and really hemming and hawing over how I was going to weather this thing. I wanted a desert setting, and then I was like, mud's kind of cool. Like, who doesn't want to just mud up a tank? To finally going that route and getting my hand on some MIG mud. So we'll probably be mudding it. There'll be in time for a little bit of dust in this thing, but we're gonna mud the hell out of the tracks, and the diorama is very much going to be mud focused. So it's been a ride, and it's been fun to have this trifecta of hobbies that blend really well together, that can all kind of be done in the same space, that can share paint, that can share techniques together. And I feel like just in the last month that I've been doing this stuff, I've learned so much. It's been absolutely intoxicating. Having come off of working on YouTube full time for 6.5 years, 10 to 12 hour days, just that mindless grind, I kind of needed like a creative outlet again, something where I felt like I was progressing and where I had to personally improve if I wanted to get better results. And so coming to this has very much been that. Again, it's helped me cope with my anxiety massively, and it's just been so stress relieving. Like, I look forward to coming up in here and sitting down at the workbench. Michelle, my wife, will come in here and hang out on my computer with me, and we'll just do our own thing. She's working on school stuff for her classroom for kids. And I'll take some time over here and just fart around with my model kits or paint a mini. This is something I've been working on. This is like a test mini. Just been practicing wet blending and a bunch of different techniques, layering on this thing. Did some chipping on the shield, working on like rust effects and oxidized copper effects and stuff. Like, just nice to let your brain sort of slip away and really dedicate yourself to something. And as much as I love video games, and there are games out there that can really grab your full attention, for me, I've been playing games since I was just a little kid. Having a fresh hobby in my life where I can really push myself again to learn and to take on new challenges has been incredibly refreshing, and dare I say, like, really necessary at this point in my life. Like, 30, man. It's nice to have something that, number one, is relatively affordable and accessible. I can spend just $20 on stuff and get a lot of stuff for the month. I don't have to spend $100 to be able to do things. And then you kind of just build up stuff over time, and you're spending less money on paint because you've got a bunch of paint, right? And then you can spend more time just farting around. So this is something we're going to come back to. We're going to talk more about this T55 after I paint it. Like I said, I'm going to be painting it tomorrow on stream. It's probably going to be, it's going to end up being like a week of painting. I know. I'm going to be really picky about things. And then once it's all weathered up, we will very much talk about it again here on the channel. I think I'll wait for the base, and we'll talk about this before the base is done. But this is definitely something we're going to revisit in a future episode of Tony Talks. That's going to do it for today, folks. If you came here because you build scale model kits, I'd love to hear from you about maybe your first scale model kit. If you've been doing it for a while now, I'd love to hear your sort of story. I love reading those sorts of things. And it's surprising how many great stories I've gotten in the past about things like this whenever I'm like, hey, share me a story, like about the first time you've done this thing. People don't forget that sort of thing typically. People will remember their first model kit. So yeah, pop on in. Let me know. And if you're somebody who's maybe looking into getting into scale modeling and this video came across your feed, just go for it, man. Look up a kit that's, relatively easy to build. It doesn't require a bunch of fabrication because it's built poorly. Probably a Tamiya kit. And just go for it. Don't worry about having all the right colors of paint. Just buy the kit. Get yourself a thing of green and just go for it and have fun, because it's so worth it at the end of the day. That's it for me, folks. Take care of yourselves out there. Stay healthy. Be safe. Empathy. It's a great time to have some. It's a great time to get some. Hold on to it if you got it. Embrace it. It's an awesome thing. I'll see you next Friday. Take care.